A man once built 45 different versions of the same spaghetti sauce. Each recipe was almost identical, but every batch had tiny changes. One had a little more sugar, another had less salt. Some were smoother, while others were thicker or filled with larger chunks of tomatoes. It looked like the kind of experiment a famous chef might run in a professional kitchen. But the man wasn't a chef at all. He was a scientist, and his job wasn't to make food taste better. It was to discover the exact formula that would make people keep coming back for another bite. His name was Howard Moskowitz, and his work would quietly change the modern food industry forever. To understand why his discoveries were so powerful, you have to understand how the human brain evolved. In nature, foods are usually simple. An apple is naturally sweet, but it contains almost no fat. A steak is rich in fat and protein, but there's virtually no sugar in it. Most natural foods specialize in one source of nutrition, rather than combining everything together. There is one remarkable exception: breast milk. Breast milk naturally contains both fat and sugar in a combination that nourishes a growing baby while activating powerful reward systems in the brain. From the very beginning of life, humans are biologically programmed to seek out that combination, because throughout evolution, it meant survival. Whenever the brain encountered both fat and sweetness together, it interpreted the food as incredibly valuable and encouraged eating as much as possible. For millions of years, this wasn't a problem, because foods containing both high fat and high sugar were incredibly rare. There was simply no need for the brain to develop a reliable off switch. Modern processed food changed everything. Take a donut as an example. When you bite into one, your brain isn't just tasting flour and sugar. It detects an unusually concentrated mixture of fat and sweetness, unlike almost anything found in nature. To your ancient survival system, that combination signals one thing: this is an extraordinary food source. Eat more while it's available. Food manufacturers eventually realized they could use this biological shortcut to influence eating behavior, and Howard Moskowitz became one of the people who helped them understand exactly how. Moskowitz held a PhD from Harvard in psychophysics, a field that studies how people perceive sensations like taste, smell, and texture. Earlier in his career, he had already discovered something fascinating about sugar. Every person has a specific level of sweetness they enjoy most. If a product contains too little sugar, it feels unsatisfying. If it contains too much, it becomes overwhelming. But somewhere in the middle exists a perfect balance, a point where people enjoy the food so much that they want to experience it again and again. He called this the Bliss Point. The brilliance of his research was that he didn't rely on what people claimed they wanted. He believed consumers often couldn't accurately explain their own preferences. Instead of asking people to describe their ideal food, he measured their reactions scientifically. That philosophy led to one of the most famous experiments in food history. During the 1980s, Campbell's hired Moskowitz to rescue its struggling pasta sauce brand, Prego. At the time, companies believed success depended on creating one perfect recipe that everyone would love. They searched endlessly for the ideal balance of sweetness, spices, thickness, and texture. Moskowitz questioned that assumption. He created 45 different versions of pasta sauce and invited thousands of people to taste them. Every variation was carefully adjusted, changing ingredients only slightly each time. Participants rated every sample, allowing Moskowitz to map their preferences with remarkable precision. The results surprised everyone. There wasn't a single perfect recipe. Instead, consumers naturally divided into distinct groups. Some loved smooth sauces, others preferred spicy flavors. An enormous number of people wanted an extra chunky sauce, a category the industry had barely considered before. The lesson transformed food marketing forever. Companies no longer needed one product that appealed to everyone. They could create multiple products, each designed to satisfy a different group of customers. Instead of searching for one universal favorite, they built entire product families, targeting different taste preferences. That's one reason today's supermarket shelves seem endless. Walk down almost any grocery aisle, and you'll find dozens of versions of the same product. Spicy, mild, low-fat, creamy, chunky, smoky, sweet, organic, extra crunchy, and countless other variations. Much of that strategy traces back to Moskowitz's research. The extra chunky Prego sauce alone reportedly generated hundreds of millions of dollars in additional sales. But creating the perfect flavor was only part of the story. Food scientists also wanted to solve another problem: how to keep people eating even after they should naturally feel full. Consider a Cheeto. It seems light, airy, and almost weightless. As soon as it touches your tongue, it begins dissolving into a soft paste before you've had to chew very much. That isn't an accident. Engineers deliberately designed the product to disappear almost instantly. Food scientist Stephen Witherly gave this phenomenon a memorable name: vanishing caloric density. The idea is surprisingly simple. Because the food melts so quickly, your brain receives fewer physical signals that you've actually eaten something substantial. The snack almost seems to erase itself before your body fully registers it. As a result, many people continue reaching into the bag almost automatically. You're consuming calories, but your brain receives weaker signals that enough food has already been eaten. This effect becomes even more powerful when combined with another limitation of human biology. Your stomach doesn't immediately tell your brain that you're full. That communication takes roughly 20 minutes. Thousands of years ago, this delay wasn't important. Natural foods required time to gather, prepare, chew, and digest. By the time fullness signals reached the brain, people had usually eaten an appropriate amount. Ultra-processed foods operate differently. They're soft, easy to chew, and incredibly quick to swallow. Instead of slowing you down, they're designed for speed. During those 20 minutes before fullness signals arrive, it's possible to consume hundreds or even thousands of calories without realizing it. By the time your brain finally says, "You've had enough," the eating has already happened. Researchers have also discovered that the story doesn't end with overeating. Scientists once conducted an experiment involving around 150 healthy teenagers to understand how frequent consumption of highly rewarding foods might influence the brain. Participants first answered a simple question: how often did they eat ice cream? Afterward, each volunteer underwent a brain scan while drinking a milkshake through a tube. Researchers observed activity inside the brain's reward system as each teenager experienced the sweet drink. Every participant showed activation in pleasure-related areas of the brain. But there was an unexpected difference. The teenagers who reported eating ice cream most frequently showed much weaker brain responses than those who ate it only occasionally. Importantly, the difference wasn't explained by body weight. All of the participants were considered healthy. The strongest predictor was simply how often they consumed the food. Researchers described this effect as tolerance. The brain gradually adapts to repeated stimulation. Experiences that once produced intense pleasure become less exciting over time. As sensitivity decreases, people often seek larger portions or more frequent consumption to recreate the original feeling. The cycle becomes difficult to notice because it happens slowly. The food delivers less satisfaction than before, yet the desire to eat it doesn't necessarily disappear. Instead, people often find themselves chasing an experience that keeps becoming harder to reach. None of this means every processed food is harmful, or that enjoying dessert occasionally is dangerous. Human eating behavior is shaped by many factors, including habits, environment, emotions, and personal choice. What it does reveal is that modern processed foods are rarely accidental creations. Their sweetness, texture, crunch, aroma, and even the speed at which they dissolve have often been carefully studied, tested, and refined, using psychology, neuroscience, and consumer research. The goal isn't simply to make food taste good. The goal is to make it memorable, satisfying, and difficult to ignore. The next time you find yourself finishing a bag of chips without remembering eating most of it, or craving another bite even after you've had enough, remember this. You're not just competing against willpower. You're interacting with decades of scientific research, millions of dollars in product development, and foods carefully engineered to work with the deepest reward systems your brain inherited from thousands of generations of human evolution. The story didn't end with scientists discovering the perfect combination of sugar, fat, and texture. In the 1980s, another shift happened, one that most people barely noticed. Some of the biggest tobacco companies began buying